coming. We're real excited when our parents come out to see what their kids are doing and so that we can share information with you. They've just passed out 2 sheets, and I'm going to talk with you about what's on these sheets, and it gives you some ideas on what you can do to help your child at home. And then they're going to do a sample lesson and show you some different activities that we've done in the classroom to go along with their reading. First of all, I'd really like to look at this, the green sheet, the side that has the bookshelves on it. As a teacher, this even amazed me when I found this information out. A child that reads 20 minutes a day, and I'm looking at student A there, 20 minutes each day, that's 3,600 minutes in a school year. They usually score in the 90th percentile, and that child has access to over 1 million words, close to 2 million words, that they can use in their vocabulary. So it's very important that our kids read. When they say, oh, I did my reading on the bus, oh, I already did my reading, it's always good to say, well, let me see you read for 20 minutes. Because often when they're reading by themselves and there is an adult around, they're just flying through it. Oh, I'm done. Okay, everybody knows how we're done, right? I like to have my stuff done too quickly, and kids are the same way. It's only 20 minutes, and it's so valuable, because look how far it drops down when they cheat themselves and only read 5 minutes. That's when they're reading 5 minutes on the bus. They're saying they read the 20 minutes, you know, and your child may love to read and may read a lot, but if your child is a struggling reader, they need to read. They need time in a book more than what's on here. If your child is struggling reading, the best thing you can do is sit down and curl up with a book with them. That's the best thing you can do for them. And just read it to them. Have them look at the words when you read. Have them read it to you after you've read it to them. And enjoy the book experience, because once they grow the love to read, then they want to read. And then if you look at a student that only reads 1 minute a day, these are the kids that look really good looking at a book. They've learned how to look at a book. Okay, if I'm doing this, I'm reading. Okay, they've gotten good at that. So watch to see if their eyes are moving back and forth. See if they turn the page at what seems an appropriate time. And you can tell if your child's going through the motions or if your child's doing it. And it's not that they want to be dishonest. Some kids just need the extra encouragement to get through it and to go on and read and get those minutes in. Let's look at the back of this sheet now. Just some more amazing facts to share with you. The first one, it says, reading aloud builds a child's want to read. I try to read to my class every day, even if it's a piece of a book. And I usually try to stop just before we hit the good part, so they're like, I want to know what's happening next. And I'm like, you're going to have to read it and find out. Okay? And so many of the kids, are you putting that on the front shelf? Are you putting that on the front shelf? And I'm like, yes, I'm putting it on the shelf. So they want to read it during their reading time. Look at the graph, the pie graph there. They are in school, that little sliver. There are 2 main teachers in a child's life. The ones that they come to visit, that's us. And the ones they live with, that's you guys. You guys have a huge impact on your child's learning, because you have them so much longer than we do. Let them see you read. Tell them when you're reading. You guys read to get here. You guys read signs in Walmart. Let them know when you're reading. Say, oh, that sign says, so they see that you're reading every day, so they see and hear that you're using your reading ability. When you go to the doctor's and you're filling out a paper, you're reading that paper. You're going to let the kids know when you're using your reading. What I thought was interesting, the next thing, 100% of kindergartners are usually interested in reading outside of school. Look at 4th grade, drops down to 54%. And they said, the research says that that's usually when parents stop reading to their kids. It was 8th grade, 9th grade. My son was still coming over and sitting to me, would you read this book to me? And it was his school book, but he liked to have me read to him. Take that time, even only if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, read to your child. Age does not matter. I was reading in the car one day to my kids, and my mother goes, "Oh, I was enjoying that book, don't stop." She was in the front seat, you know, but I was being the characters, you know, I was trying to make it funny when it was funny, and not so funny when it wasn't, you know. Look at the next one. This one is interesting. You'll hear in the research about how many kids have ADD, ADHD, and all of this, and we are contributing to it because we buy them the video games, and then we allow them to sit in front of the TV. It shortens their attention span because they're used to seeing pictures like this on that video game, and then they come to the teacher and it's like, okay, turn to page 14, okay? And we don't move like this. We can't compete with that. Their brain is used to being stimulated like that when you're doing video games because that picture is changing all the time. That little guy has to go up, he has to jump over that thing, he has to eat that thing, catch that thing, he has to do all that stuff, and it's happening like that. We can't compete with that. So that's why you're seeing more kids that have ADD and ADHD because they sit and their brain is firing really fast. And children who have 100 pieces of printed material in their homes have higher reading scores. 100 pieces. And if you look at the bottom, there's 1,500 plus pieces at the U.S. Born Books and More. So you can go on that website and they have books and things there that your child could read. So you don't have to physically have it in the house, but you have to have access to it. The library, I know, is open quite often over here. Anything just to get more books in their hands. And places to keep books. I always say, Mom should be prepared. My daughter-in-law would call me, "Oh, you're always a Girl Scout, a Girl Scout." She's from the Philippines. She was always calling me a Girl Scout because I'd open my pocketbook and I had everything in there except the kitchen sink. And she goes, "Do you have this in there?" Well, that's where you should have a book. And it doesn't matter if your child's read it 3 or 4 times. Just take it with you if it's their favorite book. When you go to the doctor's office, say, "Oh, read this." Oh, so that you give them more opportunities without sitting them down and taking their playtime at home. Because we sit at the doctor's, we sit in the car, we sit and we wait, we hurry up and go someplace, and then we sit and wait. Have a book just stuffed in there. Anything to just, I call it squeezing in minutes. Have them read the signs in Walmart. Say, "Oh, I got to go to the candy aisle." Okay, everybody goes to the candy aisle, right? No, I do, right? So make them read the signs. Make them direct you. Because then they'll see that you have to use reading in the store. Anything that will promote the reading. And on this page, I thought this was pretty neat. I'm not going to read this page to you. These are some hints that give you ideas what you can do to make book specials, get them to read. Another one, crank open the dictionary. Kids do need to look at a dictionary. Even if it's a dictionary online, you can see how it's laid out because they will have test questions that show dictionary type procedures. Okay, and if your child, the more they look at a dictionary, the better and easier it'll be for them. Okay, but anything you can do at home, like I said, you guys are the first and best teachers they have. They're going to learn the most from you.
Good evening. I'm Ellen Oldland. Thank you all for being here tonight. One of the things that Ms. Bullis was just talking about was the importance of continuing to read with your children, no matter how old they are. And one of the things that we do in class is have interactive reading. I guess when I was, my children were young and we were sitting, I was just always sitting there and just read the story to them. And maybe once in a while we talk. But we have found that a lot of children, especially children that are struggling readers, are not really thinking when they're reading. They're so busy worried about the words and trying to figure out the words that they're missing some of the comprehension. So we, in class, do a lot of what's called interactive read-alouds, where we read a story and we stop, sometimes tell the kids what we're thinking to get them thinking, sometimes ask them what they're thinking, and sort of have a conversation when we're reading to get them thinking while they're reading. So I'm going to read a story tonight. So I would love for all the kids to come sit right down here. And I'm going to show you what an interactive read-aloud is like. And this is a great thing to do with your kids, with you reading to them, but also when they are reading to you, to stop and ask some questions. All right, y'all got to scooch up. You got to be able to see these. All right. One of my favorites. Gosh, have y'all ever heard me say that?
Yes, I have.
Like almost every day. All right, this is one that's called Baghead. That's kind of making some of y'all laugh already, so you must be thinking something funny already. What are you thinking to make you laugh already?
He has a bag. He has a bag on his head.
That is kind of silly, isn't it? I wonder why he's got a bag on his head. All right, so we're going to start by looking just at the pictures first. No words yet. What makes you, how do you know that?
Because he has some scissors right here.
Okay. So we got some pieces of bag here, which means there must be some holes in the bag someplace else. Is that what you're thinking? All right, let's see. On Wednesday morning, Josh had an idea. He had a very big idea, a very brown idea, a very big brown bag idea. That's what you were thinking, weren't you, Tia?
Yes, ma'am.
That he had gotten the scissors and he cut out some holes. I wonder what he's cut out. Josh thought it was a good idea. His mother did not. You can't eat breakfast with a paper bag on your head, she said. Well, that's got me thinking, how in the world is he going to be able to see good enough to stick a fork in his mouth and get it in the hole without making a big old mess? But Josh did. He piled a fork full of scrambled eggs into his mouth and didn't leave a crumb on his plate. His bus driver, Mrs. Boyle, opened the door and stared at him. "You crazy kid! You can't go into school like that!" she exclaimed. Now, what would you think might happen if Josh walked into school?
Everybody's going to make fun of him.
You think they're gonna laugh at him? Why do you think that's on?
Because he got a bag.
Absolutely.
And he's going to get crazy.
You think it's crazy? It's very
I think
unusual.
they're going to make a lead song about it.
Ooh, they might. What would you do if you looked up and one of your classmates came in the morning with a paper bag on their head? You would all laugh. I figured that's what you would do. But Josh climbed onto the bus and rode to school. And nobody's even really paying much attention to him, is he?
Except the brain in his seat. He looked at him. He's like,
Aw.
what you crazy boy?
Do you think he's, look at how the illustrator drew that. Is that what you'd be thinking about?
Yes.
Absolutely. His teacher, Mr. Tucker, wasn't amused. "Don't tell me you forgot your book report," he said. So his teacher is thinking, "Oh, he's just trying to sneak in this classroom. He must have forgotten his work. He just snuck right on in." But Josh didn't. He stood in front of the class and told them about a boy who met a giant slug. So that wasn't the reason why he's got a bag on his head. Do we know yet? No, I wonder why. His soccer coach, Ms. O'Neill, frowned. "How do you plan to play like that?" she demanded. That'd be kind of dangerous, wouldn't it?
Somebody might be under the net. I think someone might get the ball and land it on his head.
It just might. And think about when he's trying to look at where he's supposed to be kicking. I think the bag might get in his way. He's not going to be able to see as well, is he?
It's just two big holes.
Someone should listen to what she asked again. "How do you plan to play like that?" she demanded. "With my feet," said Josh. And he scored 3 goals. So the bag didn't get in his way at all, did it? His dad picked him up after the game. "Was it crazy hat day at school?" he asked. "No." At dinner, his mother didn't say anything, and neither did his brother or his dad. "Why are you wearing a bag, Josh?" his little sister asked. Now wait a minute. He has gone around with a bag on his head all day long. And here at the end of the day, somebody's finally asked him. Nobody asked him all day long why he had a bag on his head.
They just asked him how he's going to do stuff.
Exactly. They didn't say, "I wonder why." And y'all got any idea why he might have a bag on his head?
Because he got bumps on his face or a big scratch.
Oh, that's a good idea. He's got something on there that everybody see. Ooh, chicken pox? What else?
I think he thinks he's hideous.
He looks hideous.
I Bad hair day.
Bad hair day. Anybody else got any other ideas? All those are wonderful ideas. I agree with you. So his sister said, "Why are you wearing a bag, Josh?" Somebody finally asked. "Because I tried to cut my own hair," he said. So, Christian, you were right. It was bad hair day, wasn't it? Whose fault was it?
His.
His own fault. So why do you think he walked around? Why he wanted to wear a bag instead?
His hair. His hair.
What about it? What do you think would happen?
He wanted to cut it. He wanted to cut it and
He wanted to be a new style. He wanted to.
It didn't work. It didn't work out very well, did
And
it?
it's his fault because he didn't ask his parents.
So why do you think he wore the bag then?
Because
So
he
nobody
thought
want
he was
that.
shy.
He didn't want anybody to see him look bad. He did that bad thing to himself, and he didn't want anybody to see. Not just everybody at school, but who else?
His family.
So he didn't want. Well, he didn't know he had the scissors.
Well, he did the wrong thing because he just should have asked.
Exactly. On Thursday morning, Josh's sister had an idea. A very cool idea. A very spiky idea. A very cool, spiky, mega hole gel idea. So maybe he should have talked to her from the very beginning instead of wearing a bag on his head all day, huh? That's the end of the story. But now that we know why Josh had the bag on his head, I want to go back and look at the beginning of the story again. All right. Now, I'm looking at this picture. I'm thinking someone just come home from the grocery store. They come home, they put the mail down, mom's got the key, mom and dad's got the keys down, whatever. Josh comes in the kitchen, sees the bag there. He knows. Oh, if somebody thinking back here, what you thinking, Zara?
I think that he got the bag and then he made it.
All right, so let's look.
He put
Where are the groceries now?
On the
On
table.
the table. And I want you to look carefully down here where the bag is. What do you notice?
He could have it out his hair.
His hair. Do you see the little pieces down there? So there's his hair there, where he had cut it.
But the little holes can't move, so he's just gonna have to move his hair like an owl.
And that was kind of what the soccer coach and everybody was worried about, wasn't it? You know, how he's going to be able to see as he's moving his head around.
It's just gonna look like an owl. He can't move.
Exactly. So that's an interactive read aloud, and having the kids, as you're just talking back and forth and thinking out loud and asking them questions. So when they're reading to you and when you're reading to them, we really suggest that to get them really thinking. Thank you guys, y'all were great listeners.
All right, so I have the exciting part. This is the assessment part that comes after a story. So whenever the kids read something either on their level or we read it to them or they read something on a third grade level, they have to show that they understood. It's good if they can talk about it, but we also like to have a piece of paper that can go home so you can see what they're doing. So if you saw their third grade benchmark test that's gone home in the red folders at some point, you probably saw this sheet. So over here is the story elements, like who is the main character, what was the setting, what was the problem, and what was the solution. And it's great if they can tell you that, but they also need to be able to tell us or you how they knew that. So this is what we use. Over here they tell what they know, and over here they tell how they knew it. So can somebody tell me who is the main character in that story you just heard? Who's the main character? Josh. So that's that. Good. That's the main character. How did you know he was the main character? How can you prove to me that he was the main character? Whisper with your family. See if you can figure it out. See if they know. How is he the main character? All right. How did you know? How did you know that he was the main character? Yes, ma'am.
I think it was talking about him all the time.
Excellent. It talked about him through the whole story. Super. Would it be enough to say the main character is Josh because it's said in the book?
No.
No, that doesn't prove anything. But the fact that he was in there the whole time, that was a good reason. Excellent. All right. What was the setting? What was the setting? Where did it happen? When did it happen? What was the setting? Yes, sir?
It was more than one place. He was at school, he was at home.
Good. School and home were the two main ones. Super. All right. Talk with your family. How did you know that was the setting? What's the proof? How do you know he was at school and at home? Kaden, talk to your family. How did you know? All right. Somebody who hasn't answered. How did you know? How did you know that was the setting?
Because it shows the teachers and the parents in the pool.
Excellent. Very good. It showed the teachers so you knew it was at school, and it showed the parents so you knew it was excellent. All right. So that's setting here. What was the problem? What was Josh's problem? He had a big, embarrassing problem. Sarah? He cut his hair. Was it a nice haircut? No. He had a bad haircut. What was the proof? Whisper with your family. What was the proof? How did you know that was the problem? How'd you know? How'd you know?
Because we saw his hair.
Okay, you saw his hair. Did it look bad?
Yes.
Yeah, what did he do for his solution? What did he do to try to fix his problem? How did he try to solve it?
Tell him where to put the bag over his head.
Excellent. He tried to put the bag over his head. Did that fix the problem? Okay, so what was the final solution? How did they solve that problem so they didn't have to worry about it anymore? Amaya? His sister, and what did his sister do? Gelled his hair. Good. What's the proof? What's the proof? The book said so? No. So what was the proof? What exactly did the book say that let you know? Yes, ma'am.
It said that his sister had put gel on his hair and his hair was spiky.
Spiky. Excellent. So you can't just say, oh, the book said so. You got to be able to tell exactly. You can go back and find it in the story and go, ding, ding, here's the proof. Underline it or point at it. That's fine. It's proof. You don't just want to ask them a question and let them say something. Just say something. They got to be able to prove it. So any questions about this lovely sheet or proof? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Candace Godfrey. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about fairy tales. For the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about fairy tales. What makes up a fairy tale? How do you know? Your evidence. We have been using this sheet in our class. And this one, basically, you put the title at the top. And so if you were doing Beauty and the Beast, you might rely a little bit on background knowledge. Some of you may have seen Beauty and the Beast. But can you get your evidence always from the movie? No, it needs to come from reading the book, right? Okay. So if you know about Beauty and the Beast, what can you tell me about where it might take place? What can you tell me?
The castle.
Okay, it takes place in a castle. How do you know that it takes place in a castle?
Because it tells us in the picture.
Yeah, you can see it in the pictures. You can see the walls, the stone walls in some of the pictures in the book. You can see them dancing through a ballroom. All right. Fairy tales also have good and evil characters. Good characters, that's usually your main character. Your good always wins in a fairy tale. So if you know a little bit about Beauty and the Beast, who is my good character? Who is my good character? Yes, ma'am. Yes, Belle, our beautiful princess. She is our main character. But how do you know that? How do you know that Belle is our main character? How do you know? Oh, she's on lots and lots of pages. Who can give me another reason, another way you know? Yes, ma'am. Oh, we talk about Belle through the whole story and how she does some pretty special things. What about our evil character? Who knows who our evil character is? Yes, ma'am.
The man that was trying to kill the beast.
Oh, well, Let's think about that one for just a second. He is an evil character. He's a bad character. Because him trying to kill the beast is not a good thing. But let's think from the very beginning of the story. In the very beginning of the story, there's this prince. And he's really, really mean. He likes himself and himself only. And there's an older lady that comes to visit the castle trying to find shelter from a storm. And when he doesn't help her, she casts a spell. And she makes him into the beast. So, who do you think is my main, or my evil character? The beast. Alright, so the beast is our evil character. Tell me about our problem in this story. What do you think our problem might be? Well, you're familiar with Beauty and the Beast. What do you think? Okay, she said she. Okay. Anybody else have another idea? That's a good idea. Let's see. Okay, we said that a spell was cast. So there's a spell that's been cast, and the problem is that he only has a short time to figure out how to make someone love him, or he's going to stay a beast for the rest of his life. That would be a pretty big problem, right? Do you want to stay a beast for the rest of your life? No, so he's got to figure out a way to make someone love him. So what are some of our magical elements? All fairy tales have magic. We know all fairy tales have magic. Yes, sir?
The lady, she cast a spell.
She does. She casts that spell, and she turns and she's this evil witch, and she casts this spell, and he has to make someone love him, or the spell doesn't get broken. Yes, ma'am.
All the people that were turned into like clocks and candles and dishes and
Oh yeah. All the people, when the witch cast her spell, all the people became dishes and pots and pans and feather dusters and candlesticks that talk. All these crazy things that we don't see in our houses, do we? We know those must be magical. Have you got something to add? What have you got to add? Oh, the beast does. He does turn back into the prince. That's our solution. How does he turn back into the prince? Sort of, yeah. Remember, we said that to break the spell, he has to make someone fall in love with him. So he does all these fun things with her to try to make him see that he can be a nice person too. And so, yes, in the end, right before the last petal falls off, she does fall in love with him, and he turns back into the prince. So this is just like your other sheet. You do the same types of things. You talk about the elements. The only difference is you've got your magic, your good and evil characters. You still have your problem and solution. You still have your main characters, and you still want to tell why. How do you know? Don't just tell us you saw it in a picture. Tell us what you saw in a picture that made you know for sure that is what happened. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we talked about? Hope you've seen some of those things in your children's folders to see what we've been working on. And we've been, especially with the fairy tales and all, we've been reading some aloud to them and been talking about these, and they've been reading some on their own and been answering those same kinds of questions. So.
We have about 10 minutes, and we have some books. We're going to let you try a little bit with the kids. the books. Try a couple with your kids, see what books you'd like to try out. You can stop and ask them at this point, who do you think the main character is, and why are you thinking that?
kind of like just have a Big Mac and gravy.
Yeah, it balances out.
All right, everybody, the math teachers are about ready. So, does anybody have any questions about line charts? Okay, while y'all finish up your cookies, we'll come around and collect the books.
How are you guys tonight? Thank y'all for coming out. We're the math team in 3rd grade, and I'm a student, and I need a student volunteer. And they are going to represent the 2 factors in our equation tonight that we're going to work with. Just roll them out there. That's right. All right, what we got? Oh, roll again. We don't want to do doubles. What we got? 3 and 2. All right. So our 2 factors we're going to work with in multiplication tonight are 3 times 2. And so as we've been working through this unit for the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about vocabulary and why vocabulary is so important. So the numbers 3 and 2 stand for our factors that we're solving for the product. And so we use these words all the time, no matter what strategy we're using. talk about, or I'm gonna talk about tonight is story and picture, or picture is also group strategy. And so for story, we've been asking the students to construct word problems that represent 3 times 2. They have the same keywords in them as addition, because multiplication is nothing but repeated addition. And so they have to be careful that they don't tune into those keywords and think that they're going to add 3 and 2 together. So example story problem would be, I saw green. Now, I should have had my equation already in my head. I know it's 3 and 2. I have green trucks. So there's where the first factor is. Each truck is carrying 2 pumpkins. That's where my second factor is. How many pumpkins do I have in all? And that is where we're going to solve for our product. How many do I have in all? Well, that's the same keywords that we just talked about last month in the addition unit. But now that we are doing multiplication, we've got to take these 2 factors and understand that inside this truck sits 2 pumpkins. Well, if I have 3 trucks, that means that I need to draw a picture to try to understand how this relates. So instead of worrying about drawing a truck, drawing a pumpkin, drawing it accurate to the story, we're using circles. And so the first factor is going to be 3 large circles. And those stand for the trucks. Inside each truck, I had 2 pumpkins. And there are my pumpkins. And now we ask them to apply the repeated addition with this. 2 there, plus 2 there, plus 2 there. So that my product's going to be 6 altogether. And then we ask them to put the units with it. So that would be 6 pumpkins. Nod your head if you've seen that on homework in the last 2 weeks. Okay, good. And so we are looking for these details in the story and in the picture to make sure that they understand the strategy, because it connects to one another, and then it connects to the other strategies that we've introduced with the number line, with array, with area. You're seeing the same factors repeated so that they can build on those connections, because next we're moving into division, which is the opposite of multiplication. Just like with addition, subtraction, they were opposites. And so we're just building on that foundation from day one that we started with the addition. Any questions about these 2 strategies?
And a lot of times we get the problem, the issue or the confusion of, does it matter if it's 3 groups of 2 or 2 groups of 3?
It's gonna be the same answer.
Does it matter if it's 3 groups of 2 or 2 groups of 3?
If the farmer was
This
driving
story,
3
right.
trucks and had 2 pumpkins in each truck, or was he driving 2 trucks carrying 3 pumpkins in each truck? That's why it cannot be the same representation when you draw the groups in the story now, even though they are the same product.
And I am going to explain the difference between an array and an area model. In my class, I know, I was out 2 days last week, so my class has really just started with the area model this week. A lot of the children seem to be getting confused because when we send it home, and you parents are going to, you've seen this, there's a huge grid there, and the problem might be a small problem like 3 times 2. What they need to understand, if they don't understand what each of those factors represents, then they're going to have trouble representing it in an array and in an area model. Harlan, why don't you tell us what that first factor tells us? 3 what? If
in an array, what would it represent? Rows or columns?
How would you read it, Yvonne? How would you read 3 times 2 if you're gonna put in an array?
3 rows of 2.
Three rows.
3 rows of
Take the
2.
pumpkins
That's
down
right.
and put them in the rows.
So it would look, and I'm gonna draw this one bigger, I'll use those squares there. So we would have 3 rows, our rows go side to side, 1, 2, 3 rows. And each row would have 2 things in it, so that's one of the things. Here's the other. Area, all this area model. What I tell my children is, and I actually used my Harley as an example the other day. Whenever we give these problems, we try to put them in real world situations. And I said, you know, at some point in time, all of you are going to have a house of your own. And at some point in time, you're probably going to want to remodel, put some new carpet down or something. And they all really understood what that meant. You're going to have to be able to figure area to figure out how much carpet you need for a room. You're going to have to be able to figure area to be able to put down new laminate flooring. There's lots of times where that would be a real world situation. So they have to be able to do stuff like this. So this would be your area model. And I think our little fellow back there said the 3 rows of 2 in an array. And you can have anything as an array. You can use X's, you can use dots, smiley faces, whatever. I tell my crowd to keep it simple. I'm not going to keep it simple. I'm going to make it cute.
We've also talked about how the area model and the array with the 3 rows or the 5 rows, whatever that first factor is that represents how many rows. It's like if you were going to see a movie in the theaters, or if you're going to a basketball game, they print tickets off and they're going to tell you you're on the 3rd row, seat 24B. So you need to be able to read that so you can be able to find your seat.
And here I have 3 rows of smiley faces with 2 in each row. So I have 3 rows of 2. And if you'll think about it, when we move on next week into division, this also lends itself. The kids can go back and they can draw little simple models like this. Because if you adults think back, how difficult was it when you learned to divide? Because they only taught us procedures back then. So these kids are going to have these models that they can refer back to. And it seems like a lot of work. I know when they bring this homework home at night, you think, oh my goodness, you've got to do all this for that one simple problem. But when we start dividing, you'll see why, because it will most definitely help.
Great.
And to piggyback on what Bryce just said, we do a lot of different strategies with the same problem, like 3 times 2. We've already done 1, 2, 3, 4 strategies, and we're going to do 2 more. And right now, we're still working on what we call baby numbers, small numbers. And the reason we're doing that so much with these easy numbers is because later on, when we're trying to figure out 8 times 9 or 7 times 6, they'll have a strategy that they really like and they feel comfortable using, whether it's array, area, pictorial, number line, or whatever, that they really like and really understand, and they can do that if they need to figure out a harder problem, such as 9 times 9.
Okay. The next strategy, some of you all have seen it as linear or number line. Okay. I'm gonna represent this on a number line. I always tell my students, the first thing that you do on a number line is put a what? 0. Put a 0 here. That first factor tells me how many jumps, how many loops, how many hops I'm going to have. So I tell my children, go ahead and put your jumps first. So we have 3 jumps. 1, 2, 3. Now, they go back, and we're 3 jumps of 2. So we're skip counting by 2. Within every jump, just skip counting. So 3 jumps of 2, 0 plus 2 is 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 2 more is 6. That's my answer. Oh my goodness. That's my answer. Oh, how hard was that? Got it. You're doing good. Now, the next strategy is repeated addition. I've got a little secret. I've been telling my students to do this. For repeated addition, just take those 2's. 3 groups of 2. I have 2 plus 2 plus 2. Just take it off the number line. You got repeated addition. Nobody's going to complain because you got it. Does anybody have any questions about that repeated addition? You just skip counting. You skip counting on the number line. Okay, Miss Bryce and Miss Newton or Miss Midgley want me to do repeated addition. I got a trick for her. I'm just going to take it off that number line and put it there. And I still have 6. So I still match the pictorial, the aerial model, the array. What else do they want from me? Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the number line or the repeated addition?
If it's like 3 plus 3, it would, like 3 plus 3, it would be 6.
3 plus 3 is 6. But remember now, how many 3's we have on here? 3. We have 3 groups of 2's. So you're thinking about that 3 times 3. 3 groups of 3.
Another thing that I make our kids do is when they do this number line, I tell them, what did you get there? 4. Now 4 plus 2 is going to give you 6. Because they may not have these other strategies to compare this repeated addition to. We don't know exactly what the math in the past test ask and how they ask it or what diagrams they may show. Because some of the common mistakes I'm seeing here is they've done 4 or 5 different strategies. They're going to take that answer from all these strategies and they may write who knows what here and put that pretty much 6 right there. But did you really understand that this is exactly what Ms. DeBerry just showed you here, what I just showed you in those groups is all the same. So we're trying to look for that.
And it's
Overall
just all
understanding.
these different strategies, you know, after we learn them all, it's just a way for them to multiply. They'll be able to choose the one that they like the best and run with it. Okay?
All right, next week we're moving on to division, and some of us have touched on that a little bit because it does go along with multiplying. It's just the opposite, of course, just like Ms. Newton mentioned earlier, adding and subtracting go together, multiplying and division go together. So next week when we do that, we'll be looking at how these factors go together, like on adding 2 plus 3, we can flip that around and say what? 3 plus 2. So on multiplying, if I know that 3 times 2 is 6, then I can also know that 2 times 3 is also 6. Even though in a story, this would be different, right? Okay? Now, what do we call this if we got these same facts in there, but they're turned around? Remember what those are called? Some of you?
Flip-flop.
Flip-flop? Back family, good. And we've got 2 multiplied, and most of us haven't been over this yet. We're going to move on to this next week. This is kind of a little preview of what we're going to be doing next week. Now, the opposite of multiply will be divide. Now, if we go back to our trucks and pumpkin story, what might we start with that we might pass out? What might be being passed out? A bunch of trucks or a bunch of pumpkins? What do you think? A bunch of pumpkins. How many pumpkins?
3.
2.
3.
How many pumpkins do if I'm going to divide them by the trucks, how many pumpkins will I be starting with? 6. It's like the backwards of this, okay? So if I say 6 pumpkins divided by how many trucks did we have?
3.
We had 3 trucks. How many will go on each truck?
2.
2, right. So it's just backwards. It's the opposite, right? And what if we did it the other way and said 6 pumpkins divided by 2 on each truck can fill up how many trucks? 3. So does that, you see how that might kind of, how that flows?
And the
Count
total
down.
comes first in division. The total comes first. That's just another little thing to help you remember.
Yes, ma'am. Right, it's a fact family. So, now, on our fact family, we're going to have 2 multiply and 2 divide, and we will be doing similar strategies, but not all of the strategies. The main thing we want the kids to understand here is, if my problem is a story like the pumpkin and truck story, and it says 6 pumpkins divided by, or in everyday life, we're not going to say I divided the pumpkins. We might say I passed them out to my friends, or I passed them out to my friends' trucks, or I loaded the trucks. Good. So I passed out 6 pumpkins to 3 trucks. And the question might be what? What would they be asking us? How many pumpkins went on each truck? Good. And there's that word each again. Each was in our multiply story, and it's going to be in our divide story, because everything has to be the same in each group. All right, so if it's 6 pumpkins divided by 3 trucks, well, how do I figure that out? Well, what if I took 3 trucks, 1, 2, there are my 3 trucks, and now I can pass out my 6 pumpkins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how many did each one get? Each one got 2 pumpkins. So each truck got 2 pumpkins, okay? So, and we'll show them how to use the other strategies as well to divide, but this goes back to, well, now wait a minute, if I know that 3 times something equals 6, 3 times what equals 6? 3 times 2 equals 6, okay? So we'll have lots of different strategies to learn the division, okay? Any questions on that? We haven't been over this yet. This will be new next week. Yes. Yes. Well, we'll just keep trying, just like everything else, right? We'll be all right. Okay, now we've been playing lots of games in class, and we brought 2 games that we played in class that your children may or may not have played, but they're all easy and they're fun, and you can play one side now, and you take the other side home and play it at home. And just like with the adding and subtracting, you can always use dice, and playing cards have so many math games you can play. 2 cards and multiply, so or 2